So welcome to another video. This one is not an unboxing video, but this does come in a box, except it's not just one thing, it's many things, and it's many things we don't normally see in the UK. So I'm quite interested to actually open this up. I have opened it to make sure it's the package I think it is, which it is. So let's open it up and get looking at the contents. So it's been pretty well packaged. There's a box, and inside the box there's a whole series of padded envelopes. Let's just get them all out. 7, so there's 7 of them, whatever they are. Some packaging and a bunch of cables. This is a USB A to B. So is that. So is that. So is that. Yeah, they're all USB A to Bs. So that tells us these are USB devices, but what kind? Well, let's tidy this up and have a look. So no one's particularly interested in USB cables, so I'm just going to put this to one side for now. Let's have a look at what we've got. So what we have is an AlphaSmart 2000. So you don't see these very much in the UK. They were very widely sold in the UK and the US, particularly to the education market, and I think this is where these have come from a school. I'm not sure if they've come from a UK school or whether they've come from an American school, but I did buy these in the UK, as you can see, as a job lot, so that kind of makes me think they're from a school. This particular one is an AlphaSmart 2000, and I think they're all AlphaSmart 2000s. From the eBay photos, I think there's a slight variation in them in terms of colouring, but I think they're all AlphaSmart 2000. So what is an AlphaSmart 2000? Well, it is essentially a keyboard with a built-in memory and a small display. So it's kind of like a portable typewriter in that you can type into documents, and you have keys across the top here that show that you can have up to 8 different files on the go. And then once you've finished typing what you want, you then transfer that to your host computer. This does not have any other kind of processing inside it apart from text retention. They are battery operated, so there's a little battery compartment here. This takes 3 AA batteries, and apparently these all work for weeks and weeks and weeks just on one set of batteries. This one's a little bit beaten up. It's got a crack in the case just here. It's got some writing on it. It's got a few scratches and nicks to the plastic. And I don't know if it works, obviously. So we'll get some others out and then we'll talk a little bit more about them. So this is what we've got. We've got 5 AlphaSmart 2000s, one of which is clearly not working, one of which is damaged, one of which was a bit rattly. Yeah, the screen's loose on this one. So we've got 2 essentially normal ones, I think, and 3 that are part working, at least physically. And then we've got 2 AlphaSmart 3000s, which I forgot were in here. I thought these were 2000s as well. So the 3000 was the next generation. So these originally released, the 2000 was released in 1997. And then in 2000, it got an update, a bit of a refresh. It's now in translucent plastic to go with a certain well-known Apple computer, but also some extra functionality. Also, the way these work changed a little bit. That send button is stuck down, so maybe this isn't working. So what's unusual about these is the way they kind of interact with your computer. Let's have a look at this one, for example, the first one I picked up. So you can see here there's a sign that says Apple Mac/2GS, and then here it says PC. And what happens is you basically type into your document, and you have the 8 different documents. I can't remember what the memory is in this. I think it's about 64K. So basically each of these documents can hold a fixed amount of text. And when you're ready to then transfer that to the computer, how do you do that? Well, you plug it in to these sockets. So you've basically got a ADB here for your Macintosh, and on this side you've got a PC using a mini DIN cable. Now, what this does is it actually sends out the keystrokes from this keyboard to the receiving PC or Mac as if you were there sat typing at the computer. So basically you open your Word document on the Mac or the PC, press the send button, and then this actually just sends it across the bus to the computer as if it was a keyboard. So there's no file transfer as such, you're actually transferring individual keystrokes. Quite a neat idea, makes these really simple, and that's why they're super reliable, super robust, and also super long battery life. So this is the 2000 with an Apple and a PC on it. And then the 3000, that's now labelled computer and printer. And on the computer side, you've now got USB instead of ADB. And on this side, you've still got a mini DIN. This time it's a serial one. So I'm not quite sure how that works, but it's labelled printer, so presumably you can connect it to a serial printer. So these aren't necessarily working. As I said, this send button seems to be stuck down, for example. And some of the cases are broken. So the next job is to put some batteries in and find out if any of them are working. So these all just work off AA batteries. So we're going to put some in and see what happens. Let's try that very first one we took out, just because. On the back here, there's some quick guide instructions on how to use this. The company, by the way, is Intelligent Peripheral Devices Incorporated from California, and it was set up in, I think, in 1992 by 2 ex-Apple employees. So there is some kind of history. Right. Let's turn it on. Okay, well, it said low battery. Low battery indeed. And then, oh, previously it turned itself off. This time it seems to be working. So I've never owned one of these before. I don't think there's many of them in the UK. So what I'm going to be doing is mostly by guesswork. But basically, as I understand it, you have these different file buttons here. So file number 1, opening file number 1. It's currently empty. I wonder if they're all empty. I presume they go dead when the batteries go flat, which this one has just completely done. So let's get some different batteries. Dead. So let's do a bit of mixing matching. These are all good batteries. I have checked them on the voltmeter / multimeter. Let's see what happens now. Oh, okay. So there is something in this document. Opening file 1. That one is empty. Opening file 2. There is something about a hamster. So I think looking at this, it looks like some kind of children's story. So I'm guessing this was actually used in a school, and this is the student's entry to some kind of work. Let's see what else is in here. Yeah, so this was definitely being used by somebody quite recently. I'm assuming when I say recently, the memory is still there. Okay, it's used by more than one person. These are different names attached to these documents. 6 is empty, 7 is empty, 8 has something in it. Yeah, really interesting. So I don't know how long the batteries have been out of this machine, but it has still retained this. So maybe this uses some kind of flash storage to retain the text documents. Well, that's interesting. So we've got one working one. It needs tidying up, and it's got this chip in the plastic. But we have a functioning device. Well, let's look at the others, and then we'll connect this and maybe some others to the computer and see how that transfer thing works. Okay, so this is number 2 in the pile. Our batteries are in. Okay, so we have some little status updates on the screen there. File 1 is empty. File 2 is empty. File 3 empty. So this one seems like it's been cleaned out, which I'm more happy with. Cool. So this one's worse in the sense it's got more writing on it, but actually the plastics are in very slightly better condition. So I think this one just needs a tidy. Like a bit of plastic falling out the back. Okay, let's try the next one. So this one's in much worse condition. Bits of the plastic are missing here. keyboard seems to be okay. And interestingly, it's still got its rubber feet on the bottom, so this maybe got broken early on and therefore received less use. Battery cover's also in good condition. Let's turn it on. So I don't know if it's possible to update the firmware in these. I'm guessing not, because there's no way of getting information into the machine. These are send-only ports, as I understand it. This one's also been wiped. Yeah, nothing in there. But it does seem to be working. If there's another one that isn't working, we can replace this plastic casing, potentially. So I'm guessing this one is probably not working. Not sure what it is that makes me think that, just a bit of intuition. Can't see the screen though, because there's a bit of tape in the way, so let's just get rid of that. So it does have a screen. So there are different levels of not working, aren't there? So I'm assuming it doesn't turn on, but let's put some batteries in and find out. Okay. So the other sprung into life as soon as I press the on-off button. This one does appear to be dead. But the case plastics are intact. We could potentially use that to tidy up another machine. So this is the one where the screen assembly isn't properly attached, it's loose. But does that mean it's working or not working? Well, it appears to be working. So yeah, so what's probably happened is some little standoffs that secure the screen have come out or broken. So it may be possible to repair this one. Otherwise it's in okay condition. The back's not too bad, it's got all its rubber feet on. Okay, cool. Ah, there's a label here, I hadn't noticed this before. Rialto Unified School District. Okay, so that doesn't sound very British. I think these are from America. Interesting. So every time I open up a battery compartment, something falls out. So I think the plastics are a little bit brittle inside these. So here's a 3000. The keyboard seems very stiff and this key is stuck down, so maybe it uses a different kind of key mechanism that isn't as robust. Not sure. But let's put some batteries in and see what happens. This one doesn't have a school sticker on it. Okay, batteries are in. Okay, so completely different startup. Let's just do that again. Alpha Word 1.6 English. So that's a lower firmware revision than on the previous models, but I presume it's a kind of different thing altogether. And document 1 is for a downloadable manual for this AlphaSmart, visit, and then a web address. So that's what's in document 1. Document 2, empty. Fine. So the display's working, the machine itself is working. Is that a battery indicator that comes up? Maybe. Just this send button is stuck down, which is problematic because that's how the whole thing works. So we need to address that. So this one's a little bit different. It's got a rechargeable batteries installed sticker on the battery compartment, and then when you open it up, it's 2 cut wires. So I think this had a permanent rechargeable power supply installed. Does that mean it doesn't take batteries? I don't know, let's find out. Well, the battery certainly fits. Document 2 says this is a retro distraction-free word processor. Smiley face. Interesting. So on this machine, file 1 is completely empty. There's no link to the manual, which is interesting. That's word 2. File 3 and 4. Empty. Right, so apart from this entertaining file 2, this one is working. Now really curiously, the send button on this one is also stuck down. So that's interesting, isn't it? Same failure on this model. Okay, well, let's have a look at what's inside these. Let's use one of the ones we know is broken so that we don't break it anymore. And let's have a look at what's inside. So taking this apart, I've managed to crack plastics on the front, unfortunately. All you do is take the screws out the back, and then it looks like there's a ribbon cable here which is holding the front and the back together. So this is the bottom section. Battery bays across here, keyboard, motherboard's underneath there. Something we hadn't spotted before, there's a ribbon cable here going to an infrared sender. So you could use this cable free, didn't have to use the cable plugged in, you could actually go infrared if your machine had that. Meanwhile the screen itself is attached to the front case with some screws. So that one with the floating screen, it's probably the screw standoff is broken. I am really cross with myself for breaking this bit of plastic. It's not missing any pieces, so I should be able to super glue that back together, but even so, this is a shame because this is one of the ones that have the good plastics. Okay, let's get this keyboard off. Yep, broken standoff on the plastic there. This standoff seems to have survived. Looks like it's the same screws that were in the back. Missing a screw here, but it doesn't look like there's ever one screwed in because there's no mark on this standoff broken as well. More screws across the back. Again, it hasn't got a screw in it. It's got a little plastic nipple that sticks through the hole. Can I say nipple on YouTube? Yeah. Standoff's broken again. That's already broken. That's already broken. So definitely the plastics on these are a little bit brittle. Need to be very careful disassembling them. So I need to disconnect these ribbon cables to get the keyboard off. If the ribbon cables are as delicate as everything else, we need to be careful. Yeah, they've come out okay. Okay, so the motherboard is quite compact, half the size of the case. Got some memory down here, looks of it. Motorola, that's probably the processor. Some more memory here. And then this is probably the ROM, so the operating system. There's a header here, it doesn't say what that's for. What we've also got is an internal battery. So this is what's keeping the memory in that one unit where we still have some text from the student. There's some writing here under here. So it says Intelligent Peripheral Devices version 5.0.7. So the revision number up here, 5.0.7. And a big smiley face saying, dream the possibilities. A couple of patent numbers down here at the bottom. And it's quite a simple motherboard, there's not a lot of dent traces. Bit of glue logic, some connectors for the keyboard and the infrared. But it's pretty simple. So there's obviously nothing wrong physically. I can't see any browned out components or plastic debris. So if we put some batteries in, maybe we just start poking things, see if it comes back to life. It seems unlikely, but you don't know till you try. The first thing is, are the battery connectors connected? Yes, they are. Also, let's look at this this battery here. There's no obvious way of getting it out apart from pushing it from the side, maybe. Looks like it's a 2032. Is indeed a 2032. This one's a Sony. These never have dates on them, unfortunately. Although, having said that, that says 96 on it, so maybe it's from 1996, although that would make it extremely early for this model. This model brought out early 97. Maybe not. Maybe that's just coincidence. Let's get this reassembled. Again, being super dumb, this connector's for the screen, of course. Yep, so taking it apart, pressing down on a few components has not made it come back to life. Okay, so we have a problem. AlphaSmart do not indicate on the base of the machine what the power supply should be. So I'm thinking it's probably 4.5 or 5 volts based on the fact it takes 3 AA batteries, but it doesn't say that on the base, and it doesn't say anything about the polarity. And when I did a quick Google search, it did say on some sites this is a center negative device. There's no mark on the actual power connector itself. So I've got a variable low power voltage. I can put anything in it that we need to. I have seen replacement power supplies sold, advertised as compatible with this, which are 9 volts, which might make sense if you were using a rechargeable battery pack, but we're not. So, I'm going to go for 5 volts, but then I've got the dilemma about whether to do center negative or not. I shall keep looking. Okay, the AlphaSmart user guide, which is online, says that it's a 9 volts, 200 milliamps, center positive. So that's fine. We don't need to do any shenanigans with the power cord. So let's set this at 5 volts first of all, and then plug it in and see what happens. Okay, let's press the power button. Still nothing. Okay, let's increase the voltage to 9 volts. Still nothing. Okay, so it could be that the power button doesn't work, it could be that the keyboard doesn't connect very well, it could be that keyboard connector's faulty, it could be that we're just blowing it up by not having center negative. Let's go back inside and let's deoxit the connector for the keyboard in case that's the problem. It could be on, it could be that the screen is the problem and that it's not showing a display. So there's lots of things that could be wrong with this, in addition to the plastic that I've all just broken. So it's weird that both of the 3000s send key have stuck down. The other keys seem fine, a bit stiff maybe, but fine and not stuck down. So is it not supposed to be recessed? Let's have a look. So yeah, it's come up. So it does come up, but then gets stuck down. But the one adjacent does not. Let's just put some deoxit in there and see what happens. Let's just give it a quick clean out with some air first. Hasn't made it come up particularly. That doesn't seem to have solved it. It still wants to stick down. So the keyboard on the broken one appears to be the same physical layout. So what does this key mechanism look like? Can you remove these keycaps without breaking them? I'm not sure. We could just put this keyboard onto the other device. It's the wrong colour, but it might be a possibility. It's the same layout. We don't actually know if this connector's working though, do we? Let's just see if we can get this working. I'd be happy if we could do that. So this connector on the right connects high up in the connector, and the connector on the left sits really low down in the connector. So getting them both in at the same time seems to be problematic. Okay, that one's in. Let's see if we can get the other one in. There we go. So yeah, those connectors are definitely in now. Let's put some power back in and a keyboard and and a screen. Aha. So in fact the problem with this one was the keyboard connector was not connected properly, and so it wouldn't power on with the power on switch. So we do actually have a working one apart from this broken plastic, you idiot. So let's see if we can get this plastic fixed up. Let's put a new backup battery in and repair some of those standoffs and get this up and running. So there are 5 standoffs that are broken, and what we're going to need to do, I don't want to put glue on this end and then dribble it all over the motherboard, so I'm going to put glue down into the holes and do it the other way around. And then we'll have to worry about the ribbon cables afterwards. So one of the additional problems we've got here is at the front is that it's not lining up properly. That's better. So I'm just going to weigh that down while the glue sets. So while we're waiting, we're going to try and repair this stupid fracture I put in this bit of plastic. It's not going to look pretty, but it is going to work. Somehow I need to hold that together now. Maybe I'll just do it by hand for the next 2 hours as punishment for breaking it in the first place. Hopefully I'll be able to remove my thumb at the end of this. Okay, it's 2 hours later. Has fixed it. There was a little bit of residue, but I can maybe deal with that. It doesn't look too bad on the inside either. I might put something across there to strengthen it a little bit. Final problem is this missing standoff here, which I still have, which I'll super glue back in when I super glue some strengthener on there. Okay, old credit card here for reinforcement. Got this in place. Hopefully it's lined up correctly. Otherwise the screw's not going to go in. And again, we'll leave it for a little while to set. Okay, let's see if we can reinforce this. We're going to use the baking powder and super glue trick. So I haven't ever found an efficient way of applying the baking soda. If you know a trick for that, please let me know. We may as well try and reinforce the matching one on the other side while we're at it. It's not the prettiest repair in the world, but it should help to reinforce the standoffs that were weak. So the keyboard's been curing overnight, and that is stuck on now. That is pretty robust, so that's good. Let's try and get these ribbon cables back in now that we've got the keyboard in a fixed position. There we go. Hopefully that hasn't damaged it. It's a bit more fiddling around than I like. So I measured the battery voltage, and it's 3 volts, so this is not bad. So I'm going to put this one back in. I don't think it can be the original. Okay, let's reassemble the rest of it, and we won't put the screws in yet, just protect the standoffs, but we'll reassemble it and see if it still works. Repair doesn't look too bad actually, considering. Okay, let's see if it works. So we're doing a testing RAM. That must be because the backup battery was taken out. It's gone back to default. First time switch on. It seems to be working. All the keys seem to be working. Cool. Okay, so I think we have actually repaired this broken AlphaSmart 2000. Let's give it a test on a computer. Okay, it's all fixed up and I've given it a clean. I've got rid of the pen markings on it. You can only just see the little crack here. Screws are in the back, it's holding together really well. And I've cleaned the keyboard, and the keyboard was disgustingly dirty, but it is now clean and everything's going really well until I turned it on. So now when you type, it tries to communicate, and I think basically the send button has got stuck down again because it's now trying to commute via infrared because there's no cable plugged in. So if I press escape, it goes away, back to type, and then within a few seconds it comes back. So I think this send button is being a bit flaky. I'll try the old deoxit trick, see if that's going to help. Mash that a little bit, wipe off the excess. So the only thing I haven't done is replace the feet, so the machine's a little bit unbalanced at the moment. Let's turn it back on. So there's my document. Is it going to try and communicate? Maybe not. Maybe it has worked. Fine, so we're in a position now to actually test this device. So we've got a couple of different options. We've got the infrared port on the back. We've got a PS2 port on the left-hand side, and we've got this Apple Mac ADB port on this side. So, given that this was originally kind of aimed at Mac users, I think it would be appropriate to use the Mac side rather than the PC side for now. So let's do that. So first of all, let's get some document in here. So the clear file, are you sure you want to delete? Yes. So this is the AlphaSmart 2000. Some of the keys are a bit stiffer than others. I think it needs loosening up. Okay, so I've kept it to one screen's worth of text. As you can see, it's 4 lines of text. Each of the characters is a distinct block on the screen. It's not proportional text. It's a fixed width font, and I've intentionally put some spelling mistakes in there, he says, because there is a spell check function. So let's press that. AlphaSmart is going to change, so I think we just press enter. Looking up retro. It's a little bit sluggish. Regret? No. Okay, with the letters type arrow, and it won't. So we're going to skip that one. Yes, we do want to change width and that. And this was supposed to be from. Has 2 same spellings of computer there. Let's see if we can get this one as well. It does, okay. Spell check complete. So the spell check is a useful feature, but it is limited in that because it's based in ROM, you can't add words to the dictionary. So it's looked up AlphaSmart OK. This is a retro keyboard with memory that allows you to type away from a computer for uninterrupted writing efficiency. Okay, so we have a document now that we can use to transfer to the computer. So what computer are we going to use? We're going to break out this Mac Classic 2 and see if it works. Not the Mac 2, the AlphaSmart. So we only have access to one ADB port, and we've got to be able to use the mouse, so that's a little bit tricky, but we'll work around that. So unfortunately my plan isn't going to work, because my plan was to not use the mouse, plug the ADB cable into the keyboard, the normal Apple keyboard, and then daisy chain the AlphaSmart to that. But I can't get any keyboard shortcuts to work in macOS 7, which is what's installed on this Classic 2, so I can't just use the keyboards for navigation, unfortunately, and ADB isn't hot pluggable, so you need to turn the machine off every time you want to change a device. So we're not going to do that today. I don't have a Y splitter for ADB, which is what would have come in the box with the AlphaSmart, and that would have allowed us to attach both the AlphaSmart and the mouse and the normal ADB keyboard. So we're going to have to do something different. We're going to use one of the USB ones on a more modern Mac, see if that works. Okay, so we have the two AlphaSmart 3000s. These use a USB. So one of these is going to be the best option, I think, going forward until we get a ADB wide splitter. But both of these have got the same problem. These have both got a stuck down sender key. So we do need to take these apart and have a look at that and find out what we can do about it, if anything. So fundamentally, these seem to be the same construction, same screws, same case shape. So we will take this apart and try not to break it in the process and see if we can unstick that key. I'm trying a slightly smaller screwdriver, to see if it fits in the hole better, but also see if it helps minimize the amount of torque I can put into the screw. See if that makes it less likely to break the standoff. Whether that is a valid scientific thing, I don't know, but it just feels right. I've also propped up the machine using this very expensive prop to make sure we don't crack the plastics like we did on the other one. Can't get the last one out, so I'll leave that for now. Doing this with the camera in situ is a bit of a pain, but it seems to be working. So far all these standoffs feel like they've survived. This is a different kind of plastic in the sense that it's translucent, so it may be that it is just more robust than the early ones anyway. We'll find out when we unscrew the keyboard, no doubt. So assuming it's the same case design, there should be a cable up here. Yes, there is. So that's good. And this time we can see it more clearly because the case isn't flapping around because I've broken it. So I was talking about doing a keyboard swap earlier in the video for one that was broken, but this keyboard has a new button on it called applets, which the other one doesn't. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Overall looks very, very similar. Same layout, same connectors for the keyboard. This has changed orientation and it's got capped on tape on it in this particular case. There's no infrared transceiver here. So the design of the board's changed here because of this USB port, no doubt. Let's see if we can fix this key without taking the keyboard off, because we don't want to break any standoffs unless we have to. So this is the key in question. You can see where I scraped it with the screwdriver trying to get it up earlier. At least I think that was me. So it should be up like that. But as soon as you press it, it stays down. And as it's the main functional key, it has a bit of a problem. So it gets slightly better, then it gets worse again. Definitely needs some kind of lubrication. The spring's working, just not quite enough. So apparently these are just rubber domes, so it may be possible to prise the top off and see if the dome is basically cracked and not springing back up. Yeah, it looks like it's going to come off. There we go, that's the key cap. So here's the problem. I've taken off the key next to it and there's two problems. One is a little plastic tab from this side of the guide is missing, but also the actual kind of the dome, the nipple bit on the top of the dome is missing from this hole. So there's nothing to push it back up. So I think that has just worn away with frequent use being one of the most used keys on the keyboard. So what I'm looking at now is whether if we take this apart I can move a dome from an unused key to put in here, or whether we can switch one of the keyboards from the 2000 into a 3000. The 3000s have this extra key, so whether the keyboard mapping is completely different or whether it's semi-compatible, I don't know, but that's another option. At the moment, this keyboard is essentially unusable and unfixable. So I'm going to take this apart some more and see if we can get into this part between the two parts of the keyboard, get to the membrane and the domes. So let's take the keyboard out, see if we can do this without breaking any standoffs. There's one. Number 2, being as gentle as I can. 3, okay, things are looking up. 5, don't know if you saw that flex when I started screwing it, but it didn't break, so that's good. These connectors off. So superficially the connector looks the same as the 2000, but we need to look at it in a bit more detail. But hopefully this will just come off now. So overall the board is very similar. It's a little bit more integrated in terms of circuitry, and the smiley face has moved. There's a missing component here, which is probably for the infrared, I'm guessing. And then you've got this new USB stuff over here. So unfortunately, the keyboard mechanism is held together with all these plastic welded rivets. And that is going to be a one-way process of removing those. What I'm wondering is whether I can just get away with removing a few from this corner, enough to pry that open. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, sort of progress. I've managed to prise these two apart enough to get this one rubber dome out that was on the end. And I'm wondering if I can just slide this one across. I don't think it's going to be that easy, but let's give it a go. It's really difficult to do this behind the camera, so I'm not going to do it on camera, I'm afraid. But all I'm going to do is put my screwdriver in, try and slide it across so it's in this position. And while I'm in here, I'm just going to clean this up, make sure it's as smooth and as friction free as possible. The other keys are still moving, so I'm hoping I haven't moved any other domes. Put the send key back on. That is definitely better. It's still a little bit sticky, but not bad. Let's put the other key back on just for appearance. Yeah, and that's gone straight down, as you can see. Might wedge something in there just to stop it from going down. Make it look cosmetically acceptable. So much easier to do when the keyboard isn't screwed into place, although that one hasn't gone in. I thought it had. And there we go. Bit fiddly, but still easier than with the keyboard screwed into place. Let's put a couple of screws in, just so that we can stabilise the keyboard, and then put the top back on. So this video was supposed to be a quick explore and a quick demonstration of how these machines worked, but it's turning out to be a double repair video. So moment of truth, let's turn it on. Okay, well it still works. It's a bit hard to see the screen with the overhead light on. So the applet key is permanently depressed and I'll need to work on that, but the center key is now correct. So let's press it. So nothing's happening, but I don't know if anything's supposed to be happening, but the key is definitely returning to the surface. When I pressed the applet key, it did actually bring up the applets, so that key still functions even though it doesn't spring back up. So the other keys along here are still working, so I'm hoping the send one is too. It's possible the membrane underneath the dome has become damaged, all that prodding and poking, but it's now returning. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut the shaft off a cotton bud, or Q-tip as you know them in the States, and wedge that in the back of the key. So it has two advantages. One is it's inert, so it's not going to hopefully cause any shorts of anything that's in there. It's not springy, so the key's going to be up all the time. I was trying to find a small spring that would fit inside the diameter of this, but I couldn't find one. And I was also worried that that might put too much pressure on the membrane underneath anyway. So I'm hoping this is going to be acceptable without it constantly pressing down on the key. Sounds a little bit proud. Looks okay for now. We can always pop that off later, in fact. Okay, let's turn it on. So yeah, so it's not registering that button as being pressed. But unfortunately it's not registering any buttons as being pressed. So maybe it is pressing on something it shouldn't be. So it seems that by pressing down on that with a Q-tip, we have actually damaged the membrane, I think, because it's not responding to any keys at all. I think this is now permanently connected and shorting out any other attempt at a key press. That's a big shame because we were so close to getting this working. At this point, I've cleaned the contacts on the ribbon cables, I've disassembled and reassembled it, so it does appear to be busted. It started working a little bit. I managed to get the cursor from there to there, but then it stopped working again. So with this particular one, the one that's got AS18 written on it, we are one step forward and two steps back, unfortunately. That was becoming promising. I should have just plugged it in and tried it and not worried about that other key, which is what I was going to do. So AS29, can I get you working? Can I actually manage to get this key working without breaking anything else? Let's find out. So this is the second of the 3000s. I did the keyboard mod and it worked in the sense that I could move the dome from this key to this key. This key no longer rebounds, but this one does. But the whole keyboard seems to be not working actually. You can only use uppercase letters, or at least you could to start with, and then it started to get worse and worse, and it looks like there's loads of lubricant kind of tucked in underneath all these keys. I tried to get some of it out, but it hasn't improved the keyboard. So what I'm going to do is just do a keyboard transplant. I'm just going to take this keyboard out, see if one of the keyboards from the 2000 will fit in here. And I started doing that. I decided to use the one with the already broken plastics, and that was just a disaster getting it apart. Every single standoff broke on the case. All the standoffs on the keyboard were already broken, and the screen standoffs also, one of them failed and as I was taking it apart, and the rest had already gone, so it just fell off. So they are definitely more fragile than the 3000s. The keyboard, however, does seem to be the same unit. It's got the same ribbon cables at the back, and although I thought the 3000 had an extra button, it doesn't. It just has a relabeled button. So I'm hoping a 2000 keyboard will fit in a 3000. Now, it's not as nice in terms of it doesn't match the case as well, but I don't think it's going to be a horrible match. So let's just try this. So here we are, the 2000 keyboard in a temporarily assembled 3000 case, and it actually doesn't look too bad. It hasn't got the same sort of blue as the case, but it's not a bad blue actually. And most importantly, it does fit. You can do a straight transplant physically from a 2000 to a 3000. The cables are the same, all the screw fixings are all the same. So, moment of truth, will it turn on? It does. Excellent. Does it work? Yes. Some keys are still a bit stiff, they'll probably loosen with work. Let's see if these function buttons work. Spell check. So the more advanced spell check, we can edit stuff now. Okay, so that all works. We don't know if the send button works, but that was the one that was smashed on the other keyboard, and it seems to be okay on this one. So let's completely reassemble this properly. Let's put all the keyboard screws back in, all the case screws, etc, etc, and we'll see if we need to change the backup battery in this before we reassemble it. So there we are, AS29 is all back together. It's got the wrong keyboard on it, and this spacebar is a little bit wobbly at the end. I think maybe the stabilizer bar is loose, but we'll deal with that another time. Let's find out if it works as it's intended to work. So let's get a computer out and see if we can transfer some data. So of course the computer I've got now to test this AlphaSmart 3000, released in 2000, is the 1998 iMac that it was meant to kind of complement. And you can see color-wise it's similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's in the ballpark. So here we have ClarisWorks open with a blank document, and if I type away, I can do that on the actual iMac keyboard. Absolutely no problem at all. Let's get rid of this nonsense. So if you remember, in here we have a small document, and let's see if we can transfer this onto the iMac by plugging in the USB cable and pressing send. So we're now getting a message on the screen. Attached to PC emulating keyboard, press send key to transfer file number 2. Press command file to switch to a different file. Okay, well let's press send and see what happens. And there you go. Probably can't see that from there, but I will zoom in and show you what happened. So there we have it. The text that was in document 2 has now been transferred to the iMac. And I'm just going to show you that again in real time. So let's just get rid of all of that text. I'll press the send button again and see what happens. There you go. So it basically just acts like a keyboard, sends the key characters to the program. Could be any program, doesn't have to be, in this case it is ClarisWorks, but it doesn't have to be ClarisWorks, anything that accepts text. So not only that, I can now use this keyboard as my iMac keyboard. So you could use the AlphaSmart 3000 as a keyboard for an iMac at a push. It's not a pleasant typing experience. The iMac keyboard is definitely better. Plus you've got all those extra function keys and stuff that the Mac is specific for that the AlphaSmart doesn't have. So there we have it. The AlphaSmart 2000 and the AlphaSmart 3000 keyboards. These are now fully functional. I've repaired the plastics in this one. It works. I have got a PS2 extension cable that we can use for this now, but I'm not going to go through that in this video. But we have a working AlphaSmart 2000 and a working AlphaSmart 3000, in this case with a 2000 keyboard. If you're thinking of doing this keyboard repair yourself, you might have much better luck than me if you use a plastic spudger instead of a metal screwdriver. So when I was moving the dome across from the 2 keys on the end, I did use a metal flat-headed screwdriver. I thought it was the kind of strongest and safest thing I could get in there to move things around, but I think I may have damaged the keyboard membranes. As you saw, the keyboards weren't working very well after I'd done that, so maybe don't use a plastic screwdriver, maybe use a plastic spudger. Something like this would be ideal. It's very thin plastic and should stop things from going badly wrong. So do have a go at doing this yourself. If you've got a non-working AlphaSmart, it may be worth moving that rubber dome along to the key that you need. Alternatively, try and get hold of a 2000 keyboard. They work as well. So there we have it, the first look and a repair of the AlphaSmart series of keyboards. This was supposed to be just a quick video showing you how they work and the concept behind them, but we ended up repairing 2 of them. We ended up destroying 1. We've ended up destroying a couple of keyboards as well, unfortunately, but out of the 7 that I've got, I think I can have 3 or 4 working ones, which would be nice. The plastics on the 2000s are definitely getting brittle. The one that I broke, I managed to fix reasonably neatly, but the other one I took apart to get the spare keyboard out of, that was just fell apart. So definitely Apple aren't the only people making brittle plastics around the year 2000. Of the 2, the AlphaSmart 3000 is a slightly nicer looking device, I would say. It looks a little bit more modern. The 2000 looks a bit dull. The 3000 also has the advantage of being USB compatible, so you can use it on pretty much anything with a USB port, whereas the 2000 only works with ADB or PS2. I'm not quite sure how this printer side works. That we can work out on another video. So I'm planning on doing another video where we use these in a little bit more detail. There's no infrared on the 3000, but we've got some 2000 spare parts, and that includes an infrared, and there is an infrared connector on the motherboard, so it may be possible to upgrade this to an infrared device as well. That would all be in a future video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Always a new video out every fortnight, sometimes a little bit quicker than that. Do comment. I do read every single comment. I don't always get a chance to reply to them all, but I definitely read every single one. YouTube's about to show you a video you may be interested in, and if you are, have a click on that. If not, we will see you in the next video.